Hello Precalculus student, this video is for chapter 6.1, sine and cosine function graph, and we are looking at some terms for the sine and cosine function so that we can know how to graph some transformation of it. So we have just graph y equal to sine and y equal to cosine, and they look like this. For sine, it's 0 to 1 to 0 to -1 to 0. And then for cosine, it will be 1, 0, -1, 0, and then 1 again. In order to describe this particular kind of function in one cycle, we can talk about the x values. What is the length of one cycle? And we call it a period. So in this case, both of them is from 0 to 2 pi. After 2 pi, they repeat. And also because they all have like loop around a midline. The midline is the x-axis. So the length of the maximum to the midline is 1, and we call this the amplitude. Kind of like a wave, right? If you do sine wave, you see, that's how the wave, the highest point of the wave to the middle. So that's called the amplitude. So 2 points that we talk about would be amplitude and period. For the basic sine and cosine function, the amplitude is 1, right? Default for y equal to sine, sine x, and also cosine x, both amplitude is equal to 1 and period is equal to 2 pi. So that is for the really basic one, right? Y equal to cosine. Now, if I am to graph something that is different, like I multiply by a number a, and I outside, and I multiply by a number b inside the function a sine bx, such as like 2 sine 3x, or y equal to 1/2 cosine 4x. So what would it change? So we can look at decimal to see what happened. Now technically, so you can see y equal to sine x. Okay, so if you want to see the setup, like the, what is it called, the negative 2 pi, 2 pi. If you want the label to be correct, you can do this. Negative 2 pi, 2 pi, and then your step is pi over 2. So to type pi, you just do pi. We don't need that much, right? Let's say negative 3 to 3 is good enough. You can see a very nice, and it has to be in radian, as you can see, it's very nice. It's a sine graph. Now, if I add something outside like 2 sine x, what happened? That's the blue one, so it's just go up, right? It affect the amplitude. If I change it to 1/2, you can see that the amplitude change. Basically, it still go up and down, and also from 0 to 2 pi as before. The only change is the amplitude change. So A affect the amplitude. What about if I make something changes inside? Sine, let's say 3x. What happened? It doesn't affect the amplitude. The amplitude is still 1, but it affects how the wave, the frequency change, right? So instead of like from 0 to 2 pi, instead of one frequency, now I have what? 1 time, 2 time, 3 time. So 3 is actually the frequency, the number of cycle in 2 pi, right? 1 pi, 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, right? Or it changes the period. The period now is 2 pi over 3, right? So the 3 show up as 2 pi over that number. If I change to 2, this is what? Pi over 2, because it's 2 pi over 2. If I change this to 5, then the one period is 2 pi over 5, right? One period is go to the top, back, and here. So 2 pi over b, this is the frequency, and the new period is 2 pi over this number. So that's what we want to say. If I have a number that I multiply outside a, the absolute value of it is the amplitude, the new amplitude. If I have a number b multiplied inside, Then the new period is 2 pi over b. B is the frequency in one cycle, in 2 pi cycle. Now, sometimes what happens if I have x equal to negative? Okay, let's see. Let's just go back to x. But I do negative. What happens is you see a reflection, right? So it's a reflection over x-axis. So in one cycle, the left endpoint still start from 0, but the right endpoint will be 2 pi over b. The maximum of A would be absolute of A. The minimum of A is negative of absolute of A, where the midline still stays the same because you don't see them shift up and down. These are technically vertical strain and stretch for A, and B corresponds to horizontal strain and stretch. You also might ask me, Ms. Chen, why don't you do absolute value? So what happens if B is negative? In most of the graph we were given to graph, we don't have B being a negative number. Why? Because we know that if there is a negative x that we need to graph, we can just move it outside for sine because it's the same thing. And for cosine, whether you do positive or negative inside, it does not make a difference. If you graph cosine negative x and cosine x, it's the same thing. So we can safely actually assume that B is always positive. Okay, but nevertheless, it's about horizontal strain and stretch. That's what it affects the period. Okay, so remember, A affect the amplitude, which is how high the loop can go, the wave can go, and B affect the period. The new period is 2 pi over B. Okay, so let's do this. Find the amplitude and period of the function and then sketch a graph. Okay, so match it with A sine BX, right? A is the amplitude, and the new period it used to be 2 pi. After you have a B, it would become 2 pi divided by B. So in our case, the amplitude is 4 because 4 is already a positive. The period is now not 2 pi. It doesn't stop at 2 pi, but 2 pi over 2. That means pi. What is the left endpoint now? You start from 0 always. And because there's no shifting left and right, and the endpoint will be 1 period. So this is not actually the endpoint, but the endpoint of one cycle. Okay. When I say endpoint is one cycle's endpoint, it stops at pi. What is the maximum? Is 4. What's the minimum? Is negative 4. So basically, instead of 1 and negative 1, now it's become 4 and negative 4, right? And then for the left and right, we have it start from 0. Instead of 2 pi, now it start from pi. And then in order to graph it, this is a sine graph and there's no reflection. So we would do half of it, pi over 2. This is 0. And then what is the half between 0 and pi over 2 is pi over 4. The half between pi over 2 and pi would be pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2, then divided by 2, right? So it's 3 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4. We can graph it. We know for sine it is intercept, max, intercept, mean, intercept. So be like that. Because it's sine. Sine is like this. Okay, let's graph this one. What is the amplitude? The amplitude is A is here, B is here. Amplitude is just the absolute of A, which is 1/3. What's the period? Is 2 pi over 1/2, right? B is 1/2. How do I do 2 pi over 1/2? That is equal to 2 pi times 2 over 1 times, this is the dividing, so it's flip over. That is actually equal to 4 pi is a vertical stretch of 2, right? So if you think of it as a horizontal stretch, so that means I know my left endpoint is always 0, and now I stop at 4 pi. So I make it like kind of longer. The middle number would be 2 pi. In order to graph, and the middle number, so start from 0, will be pi. Then this middle, it would be 3 pi because 2 plus 4 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. What is the maximum y? If the amplitude is 1/3, so I would just go to 1/3 and negative 1/3. So again, it's a sine. Sine is like this, right? Remember, sine is like this. So we will do intercept, max, intercept, mean, intercept. Okay. Okay, so that's how you graph it. I'll do a lot of example on here. Another sign function. So A is -2. B is, oh, where is my x? X is in the top. So it's actually pi over 6, right? Pi over 6 times 6 is the same as pi x over 6. Yeah, so B is, you ignore the x, it's just the coefficient of x, so pi over 6. So amplitude is the absolute value of -2, meaning it's 2. So it means the wave would go maximum 2. Period is pi over 6. What does it mean? That means the new period now is 2 pi divided by pi over 6. Again, we're dividing a fraction. That means 2 pi times what? 6 over pi. Pi and pi cancel. That's equal to 12. So all of a sudden, well, it is a radian, so you could have 12. You could have 12. And the middle would be 6. We always write down all the quarter points. 3. What is 6 between 6 and 12 is 9, right? Because 6 plus 12 is 18. 18 times divided by 2 is 9. That's how you do tip. And then the beginning is 0. What is the maximum y is 2. What is the minimum y is -2. So 2 and -2. Left end point always is 0. Right end point is the period. Okay. Left end point is 0. Right end point is, when I say end, it doesn't end. It actually goes on forever. But we just, maybe we should just, so you know that it goes on forever. And is this a sine or cosine? It's a sine. And then we notice that A is negative, so A less than 0. So that's reflection. When we have reflection, we start from 0, but we go down. We go to the minimum first, right? So be this quarter is minimum, go back intercept, go to the maximum, and then go down. So be loop down first and then loop back up. Now, for question from this one, I want to write the 5 key point now. What is the 5 key point? This is 0, 0. The second one is 3 down -2. And then this one is 6, 0. X is 6. So then the X is 9, but it's up to 2, right? The last one is the X is 12 down to 0. So that's the 5 key point. What about this? I didn't do the 5 key point for this one. Maybe I should. Okay, should I do the 5 key point for this one, the 4 pi one? It says 0, 0, and then pi up to 1/3. And 2 pi is 0. 3 pi go down to -1/3. And then 4 pi 0, right? Do I have time to graph one more? Let's graph this. So it's cosine 3x. So A, oh, there's no A. That means A is 1. B is 3. Okay. So absolute amplitude is 1. Period is 2 pi over 3. Okay. That's just 2 pi over 3. We don't have to do anything. The left end point is 0. The right end point is just the end of a period, 2 pi over 3. Okay. Y is 1 and -1. So this would be 1, -1. We have, you added 2 pi over 3. What is half of 2 pi over 3? Well, it will be pi over 3 because you have 2 pi, right? And then what is the middle between 0 to pi over 3? It will be pi over 6 because divided by 2 means times 1/2. This is a little tricky. So pi over 3 plus 2 pi over 3, add them, and you divide it by 2. The top is 3 pi over 3, that's pi. So that means pi over 2. So you get all the the 4 number or the 5 point. And then we are to graph, oh, this is a cosine. Cosine is max, mean, intercept, max again. So curve down, curve up, curve up. Okay, so can I have time to do key points? So x is 0, y is 1. X is pi over 6, y is 0. X is pi over 3, y is -1. X is pi over 2, y is 0. X is 2 pi over 3, which is complete one period, is 0. No, it is 1.